If you look at Google Trends, kiteboarding is actually declining in popularity. But according to market research, the kiteboarding industry is growing at a rate of 8% per year. In fact, by 2022, Ken Research believes that the global kitesurfing equipment market will reach $2.2 billion. That seems a bit high though, as the best estimate for number of kites sold in 2017 was somewhere between 140 to 150,000 kites, according to GKA via iKitesurf magazine. Let's say the average kite costs about $1,500. If you take $1,500 times 150,000 kites sold, that's about $225 million. It's hard to estimate the size of the kitesurfing market without access to industry data. One number that we found was that the size of the kitesurfing market back in 2013 was about $250 million USD, which is in line with our rough math. One thing that's for sure is that the kitesurfing industry is very niche and very small, especially when you compare it to other action sports. For example, surfing is a $10 billion industry with spin-off activities of up to $50 billion. So how many kitesurfing brands are there? Well, we searched the internet far and wide for any kitesurfing companies that sold kites to consumers, and we compiled this Excel spreadsheet. Please note that we didn't include any companies that produce just boards, as there were way too many to count. Alright, so let's start with our top 10 brands that include the big players such as Duotone, Cabrinha, and Naish. Now, we don't have access to industry numbers, nor did we want to spend $2,500 on an industry report, so we are using publicly available information, so please do take that with a grain of salt. We have linked all of our references in the description box below. According to kitefinder.com, the top 10 kite brands for 2018 by page views were North Kiteboarding, now Duotone, Cabrinha, and Naish, followed by the smaller players. So we have our top 10, but what about the other kites that we see here and there on the beach, like Liquid Force, Ocean Rodeo, and Elevate? This brings our total to 31. Now let's add the local and family-run businesses like Board Riding Maui, Dimitri's Epic Kiteboarding, and Tona Kiteboarding, and this brings our total up to 39. Have you ever heard of Faith Kiteboarding? Me neither. The following 11 brands are ones that we've never heard of, but they bring our total up to 51 kite brands. Now there are probably many more brands that exist like this, simply due to the fact that nowadays pretty much anyone can go into Alibaba, pick a manufacturer, put your logo on a kite, and boom, you've got a kite brand. Finally, we have Vantage Kites and the new North Kiteboarding, which don't have any kites available just yet, but they are coming. So this brings our grand total to 53 kite brands. Of course, just because a kite brand manufactures a kite doesn't mean that they own their own factory. It's our understanding there's actually only a handful of factories that make all the kites for these 53 brands. Now you may think that having a lot of kitesurfing brands is a good thing. Perhaps the industry is growing at such a rate that it warrants this many kite brands. But is it really a good sign that there are 53 kite brands? You see, for most brands, technological innovation and product performance is the basis of competition. That's why each year, each new model turns faster and jumps higher. While I do genuinely believe that there is incremental improvement with each new kite model, this technological innovation can lead to the market overshooting itself and the user base collapsing, just like what happened with windsurfing. According to the paper How Industry Competition Ruined Windsurfing, equipment-based sports may experience a rapid rise in popularity, but eventually technology-driven competition leads to equipment overshooting the capabilities and financial budgets of most users, which leads to rapid decline in participation and the eventual collapse of the market for sports equipment. Windsurfing started in the 1970s, and it was viewed as a fun and casual sport. The equipment wasn't very expensive in the beginning, and it wasn't terribly sophisticated either. Over time, though, it became a more competitive sport with specialized disciplines. This, of course, led to more specialized, sophisticated, and expensive gear. Does this remind you of something? Innovation was driven by users and by companies eager to claim market share. As the equipment developed to meet the demands of the elite athletes, the equipment became too expensive, too time-consuming, and too difficult for the recreational windsurfer. Also, as the gear became more expensive, there was simply more money to be made selling equipment rather than teaching people how to windsurf. As a result, the schools began to shut down and the prices on the gear continued to climb. To give you an idea just how big the decline was, in the mid-80s, there were over 1 million people who would go windsurfing at least once per year in the United States. But by the year 2000, that number had dropped to just over 200,000. Windsurfing went from being a fun hobby that got you out on the water with friends to being marketed as an extreme sport, where if you weren't surfing the big waves on the best gear like the team riders, you weren't cool. That discouraged a lot of people from continuing to windsurf or even trying to begin with. While mega loops, strapless freestyle, and foilboard racing are very impressive, we can't help but wonder if they're encouraging people to get into kitesurfing or perhaps the opposite. That's not meant as any disrespect or to say that those disciplines shouldn't exist. It's just, should they be the main focus of the 53 Kite Brands marketing campaigns? Now, I know what you may be thinking. What's the big deal if there's less people kiting? Doesn't that mean there's more room on the beach for me? Well, if kitesurfing goes through the same decline as windsurfing, that may mean there's no one at the beach to help you launch or land, to catch your epic jump or your epic bail, or to just enjoy the session with. Let's face it, we need new people to join the sport, whether they're young or young at heart, so that the sport continues to exist. So what's the solution? How can kiteboarding as an industry avoid overshooting? The article proposed industry-wide regulation. For example, if you take cycling or swimming, they've avoided overshooting because their equipment is regulated on an industry-wide level. Another suggestion that the article made was to create new domains of competition, similar to that of yachting or motorsports. This seems like the more likely path that kiteboarding is heading down. We're curious though, what do you think? Is kiteboarding heading towards an inevitable decline, or will it continue to grow at a rate of 8% per year? Also, do you think the inclusion of foilboard racing at the 2024 Olympics will make a big impact on the sport? Personally, I find it a little bit discouraging that the youngest people at the local kite beaches are in their mid to late 20s. However, that is Toronto, Canada, not exactly known as a hot kite destination. I don't know about you, but when people approach me on the beach and are curious about kiteboarding, one of their first few questions is how much does it cost to get into the sport? It's clear that the cost of the equipment can be a barrier for entry to some. So long as there continues to be a thriving used market and entry-level price gear, I think that will be a positive factor in the growth of the industry. Most importantly though, I think if we keep the heart of the sport at the forefront, having a good time with friends, being active and enjoying windy days while being good ambassadors, both on the beach and online, that will only welcome more people into the sport of kitesurfing.